Captain Hyun-soo stood on the bridge of the New Dawn, watching the stars shift back into their normal positions. The hyperspace jump was complete. They had arrived at way station Epsilon 7 right on schedule. Behind him, the navigation officer checked the readings and nodded. Everything looked good. The New Dawn was not a warship. She was a colony transport, old and slow, carrying 12,000 people to a new world. Families slept in the passenger sections. Children played in the recreation halls. These people had left Earth behind to start fresh on Arcturus Prime, a planet far out on the galactic rim. Hyun-soo had promised to get them there safely. He intended to keep that promise. "Sir, I'm picking up multiple contacts," Lieutenant Ji-eun said from the tactical station. Her voice was calm, but Hyun-soo heard the concern underneath. 14 ships. They just appeared on our sensors." Hyun-soo frowned. 14 ships was a lot. "Identification?" "Running them through the database now," Ji-eun replied. Her fingers moved quickly across her console. "Got it, they're Valtresh Consortium vessels. Military configuration. The Valtresh, Hyun-soo knew about them. The consortium controlled this entire sector of space. They were a coalition of 3 alien species who had built a powerful federation. Humans had encountered them before, mostly during trade negotiations. The meetings had not been friendly. The Valtresh looked down on humans as newcomers to the galaxy. Primitives from a backwater world. "Are we in their space?" Hyun-soo asked. "No, sir. This is neutral territory. The Galactic Council designated these routes as free passage for all species." Before Hyun-soo could respond, the communication system crackled to life. A face appeared on the main screen. The alien had gray skin, 4 eyes arranged in a square pattern and a mouth that seemed too wide for its face. This was Commander Ryloth according to the identification tag that appeared below his image. "Human vessel," Ryloth said. His voice was translated by the computer into something Hyun-soo could understand. But the contempt came through clearly. "You are traveling through space controlled by the Valtresh Consortium. You must pay the passage tax." Hyun-soo kept his voice level. "Commander Ryloth, this is Captain Hyun-soo of the New Dawn. We are in neutral space. There is no passage tax here. The Galactic Council regulations are very clear about this." Ryloth's wide mouth curved into something that might have been a smile. "The Council is far away, human. We are here. You will pay or you will surrender your cargo. We know you carry valuable equipment and supplies for your colony." "We're a civilian transport," Hyun-soo said. "We have 12,000 people on board. Families, children. We're not carrying anything worth taking." "That is for us to decide." Ryloth leaned forward. "You have 1 hour to prepare your cargo manifest for inspection. If you refuse, we will take what we want by force." The screen went dark. Hyun-soo turned to his crew. Engineer Dongwoo had come up from the engine room. His face worried. "Can we outrun them?" Hyun-soo asked. Dongwoo shook his head. "Not a chance. They're military ships. We're a cargo hauler. They could catch us in minutes. Can we fight?" "Sir, we have point defense systems for asteroids and some light defensive weapons. Against 14 warships?" Dongwoo looked sick. "We'd last maybe 30 seconds, Ji-eun spoke up. "Captain, we should send a distress signal. Earth needs to know what's happening here." Hyun-soo nodded slowly. "Do it. Send it on all emergency channels, including the military frequencies." "Sir, Earth is 47 light-years away. Even with our fastest ships, help couldn't get here for weeks. Maybe longer, I know. But we have to try. Send the signal." Ji-eun worked at her station. "Signal sent. I've included our position, the number of hostile vessels, and their identification codes." Minutes later, Ryloth's face appeared on the screen again. This time he was laughing. "We intercepted your little message, human. Very touching. Let me show you something." The image changed. Hyun-soo saw his own distress signal playing on what looked like the bridge of a Valtresh ship. Alien officers were gathered around, pointing at the screen and making noises that the translator rendered as laughter. "Listen to them calling home to their little blue world," Ryloth's voice said. "Do you think anyone is coming? Do you think they can help you?" More laughter. "By the time any help arrives, we will have stripped your ship clean and been gone for weeks. You are alone out here, human. You are at our mercy, and we are not feeling very merciful today." The screen went dark again. Hyun-soo stood frozen. Around him, his bridge crew looked terrified. He could hear the fear in their breathing, see it in their eyes. These were not soldiers. They were explorers, navigators, engineers. They had families too down in the passenger sections. "Sir?" Ji-eun's voice was small. "What do we do?" Hyun-soo straightened his shoulders. We don't surrender. Alert all sections. Get everyone to the central compartments. Those have the most armor. Dongwoo, can you give me any engines at all? I can probably get thrusters online. Enough to dodge, maybe, but not enough to run. Do it. Jian, charge up whatever weapons we have. Even if we can't win, we can make them work for it. The next hour passed slowly. Hyun-soo walked through the ship, talking to the families huddled in the central sections. He lied to them. He told them help might be coming. He told them everything would be okay. The parents looked at him with desperate hope in their eyes. The children held on to their mothers and fathers. Back on the bridge, the countdown reached its final minutes. The Valtres ships had formed a perfect circle around the new dawn. There was nowhere to run. Dongwoo had managed to get the thrusters working, but it would not be enough. Ji-yoon sat at her station, her hand hovering over the weapons controls. She could fire maybe 1 or 2 shots before the Valtres destroyed them. 2 minutes, Ji-yoon said quietly. Hyun-soo closed his eyes. He thought about Earth, about the blue oceans and green continents. He thought about his family back home. He had a sister in Seoul. She had asked him not to take this mission. He wished he had listened. 1 minute. He opened his eyes. He would face this standing up. He would not let these people see him afraid even at the end. Sir, Ji-yoon's voice suddenly rose. I'm getting readings. Multiple hyperspace signatures. Big ones. How many? I don't. Sir, there are 27 ships dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. They're broadcasting identification codes. They're military codes. Hyun-soo felt his heart skip. Show me. The main screen changed. There, emerging from the distortion of hyperspace, were ships. Human ships. They were huge, larger than anything Hyun-soo had seen before. They bristled with weapons. They moved in perfect formation like sharks cutting through water. The lead ship was massive, a battle cruiser with the name Seoul's Hammer painted on its hull. And it was heading straight toward them. On the Valtres channels, Hyun-soo could hear confusion and alarm. The aliens had not expected this. No one had expected this. A new voice came over the communication system. It was calm, cold, and spoke with absolute authority. This is Commodore J. Sung of the United Earth Space Force 3rd Fleet. You are holding human civilians hostage. Power down your weapons immediately. You have 2 minutes to comply. Hyun-soo sank into his chair. His hands were shaking. Around him, his crew stared at the screen in disbelief. They came, Ji-yoon whispered. They actually came. The cavalry had arrived. And they had brought an army. 48 hours earlier, Admiral Taemin had been drinking coffee in his office at Pacific Fleet Command when the distress signal arrived. The priority alert woke up his computer systems and flashed red across every screen. He set down his cup and opened the message. The new dawn. 12,000 civilians. Valtres Consortium. Hostage situation. Taemin pressed a button on his desk. Get me the president. Get me the Joint Chiefs. Emergency meeting in 20 minutes. The meeting room filled quickly. President Sung-ho arrived first, still in casual clothes. General Na-young came next, the head of the Space Defense Force. She looked worried. The other chiefs filed in one by one, each reading the same report on their tablets. How long ago was this signal sent? President Sung-ho asked. 37 minutes ago, sir, Taemin replied. By the time we received it and decoded it, the new dawn has about 20 minutes left before the Valtres deadline. How far away are they? 47 light years. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. Even with the fastest ships, traditional deployment would take weeks. The civilians on the new dawn would be dead or captured long before help could arrive through normal channels. What are our options? The president asked. General Na-young stood up. She walked to the large display screen on the wall and brought up a star map. We have one option, sir. It's time to use Anvil Protocol. Several people in the room shifted uncomfortably. Anvil Protocol was the most classified program in human history. Only a handful of people knew the full scope of what Earth had been building for the past 20 years. Explain it for those who don't know, President Sung-ho said. Glancing at the newer cabinet members, Na-young nodded. When humanity achieved faster-than-light travel 20 years ago, we encountered the galactic community. Most species we met were peaceful. Some were not. The Valtres, the Crethon Empire, the Scar Collective, they all looked at us as primitives from a backwater world. They pushed us around in trade negotiations. They threatened our exploration vessels. They made it clear that in this galaxy might makes right. She changed the display. Now it showed the outer solar system beyond Neptune, so we started building in secret. We converted asteroid mining platforms into shipyards. We used resources from the outer planets. We told the galaxy we had a small exploration fleet. What we actually built was an armada. The display zoomed in on massive structures hidden in the shadow of Neptune and Uranus. Huge ships sat in berths, ready for deployment. Battle cruisers, destroyers, carriers, hundreds of smaller fighters and bombers. The Third Fleet alone has 27 capital ships, Na Young continued. We designed them specifically to counter consortium technology. We studied every encounter, every piece of data we could gather. We built these ships to win. How fast can they reach the new dawn? President Sung Ho asked. Admiral Taemin answered. With our new hyperspace drives, 38 hours. We can get there before the Valtresh have time to hurt anyone. And if they hurt someone before we arrive, Taemin's face hardened. Then the Valtresh Consortium will learn what happens when you threaten human lives. President Sung Ho looked around the room. Deploy the Third Fleet, rescue our people. Show the galaxy that Earth protects its own. The order went out immediately. Far beyond Neptune, in the cold dark of the outer system, lights began to turn on. Massive shipyards that had been dormant and hidden suddenly came to life. Ships that had been waiting for years began their launch sequences. Commodore Jae Sung received his orders while inspecting the Soul's Hammer. He was a veteran of Earth's naval forces, had served on submarines in the Pacific before transferring to the space program. He understood something that most alien species did not. He understood that Earth's oceans had taught humanity how to hunt, how to hide, and how to strike without warning. All ships, battle stations, he ordered. We're going to get our people back. The Third Fleet assembled quickly. 27 capital ships, 58 support vessels, 400 fighters and bombers. It was the largest deployment of human military force since the colony wars of the last century. And the galaxy had no idea it existed. In the fighter bays, Captain Yu Jin checked her craft for the third time. She led the Wraith Squadron, the most elite fighter wing in the fleet. Her pilots were the best humanity had to offer. They had trained in simulators that replicated Valtresh tactics. They knew the enemy's weaknesses. Wraiths, this is your captain, she said over the squadron channel. We're going in hot. The civilians need us. We cannot fail. In the bomber wing, Major Sunmi ran through her weapons checklist. Her squadron carried Hellfire missiles, devastating weapons that most galactic species had abandoned centuries ago. The aliens thought nuclear weapons were barbaric and primitive. They were about to learn that barbaric and primitive could be very effective. Engineer Hye Jin, head of weapons development, gave a final briefing to the fleet commanders. Our railguns fire projectiles at relativistic speeds. The Valtresh shields are designed for energy weapons. They won't stop solid matter moving this fast. Our missiles use nuclear-shaped charges. Their armor isn't built to handle this kind of kinetic impact, and our reactors are triple redundant. They're used to operating through solar radiation and electromagnetic storms. The Valtresh can't disable them easily. Why are our weapons so much more powerful than theirs? One of the younger officers asked. Hyojin smiled. Because we come from a death world. Earth has 1.2 times the gravity of most habitable planets. Our atmosphere is thick and stormy. Our oceans are deep and violent. Everything we build has to work in those conditions. So we build tough. We build strong. And we build to survive. The fleet entered hyperspace together. 27 capital ships disappeared from the outer solar system in flashes of distorted light. They were heading toward the new dawn at speeds the Valtresh thought impossible. On the Soul's Hammer, Commodore Jae Sung stood on the bridge and watched the hyperspace display. 38 hours. That was all the time they had. He thought about the families on the new dawn, parents holding their children, people who had left Earth to build a better life, people who trusted that humanity would protect them. Sir, why do you think the Valtresh underestimate us? His first officer asked. Jae Sung considered the question. Because they look at Earth and see a young species. They see that we only achieved FTL 20 years ago. They see our small exploration fleet. They think we're weak. He paused. They forget to ask why a species from a high-gravity death world survived long enough to reach space. They forget that Earth tried to kill us for millions of years, predators, disease, ice ages, asteroid strikes, and we survived all of it. They think Earth made us weak. Yes, they're about to learn the opposite. Earth made us strong. Earth made us survivors. Earth made us dangerous. Jae-sung looked at the countdown timer. And in 38 hours, they're going to understand what that means. The fleet raced through hyperspace. Behind them, Earth's hidden shipyards continued production. More ships were being built. More weapons were being tested. Humanity had decided, quietly and without announcement, that they would never again be helpless in the face of galactic powers. The days of being pushed around were over. The days of being threatened were over. The galaxy was about to meet humanity on humanity's terms, and those terms were written in the hard lessons of a death world where only the strong survived. The countdown on Commander Ryloth's display showed 30 seconds. He sat relaxed in his command chair, watching the human transport ship on his main screen. The new dawn hung in space like a wounded animal, surrounded by his fleet. This would be easy. Around him, his crew was equally calm. Some were even taking bets on how long the human ship would hold together under fire. The Valtresh had fought many battles. They had never lost. They had superior technology, superior weapons, and centuries of combat experience. What did these humans have? Nothing but desperation. 20 seconds, his tactical officer announced. Ryloth smiled. This would send a message to all the other species in this sector. The Valtresh Consortium was not to be challenged. Not by newcomers. Not by primitives from high-gravity worlds who barely understood how to build a hyperspace drive. 10 seconds. On the new dawn, Captain Hyun-soo held his breath. Around him, his crew was silent. They had done everything they could. They had sent their distress call. They had moved the civilians to safety. They had powered up their pathetic defensive weapons. Now all they could do was wait. Lieutenant Ji-yoon stared at her sensor display. The reading she had seen moments ago could not be real. 27 ships. Human ships, coming toward them at impossible speeds. But the sensors did not lie. 5 seconds. Then every alarm on every Valtresh ship began screaming at once. Ryloth jumped from his chair. What is that? Report. Sir, multiple hyperspace emergent signatures. Right at the edge of the system. How many? 27? No, more than that. There are smaller craft as well. Sir, they're all broadcasting military identification codes. Who's military? The tactical officer looked up, his 4 eyes wide with shock. Human, sir. They're all human. The main display changed. Ryloth watched as ship after ship dropped out of hyperspace. They were massive. The lead vessel was a battle cruiser that dwarfed anything in his fleet. Its hull was dark gray, covered in armor plating. Weapons bristled from every surface. And painted on its side in letters 3 meters tall was the name, Soul's Hammer. The human fleet moved into combat formation with perfect precision. They came in fast, weapons already charged. This was not a rescue fleet. This was a war fleet. Sir, we're being hailed. On screen, a human appeared on the display. He wore a dark blue uniform with gold insignia on his shoulders. His face was calm, but his eyes were hard. When he spoke, his voice was translated into Valtresh common tongue. This is Commodore Jae-sung of the United Earth Space Force 3rd Fleet. You are holding human civilians hostage. You have committed acts of piracy in neutral space. Power down your weapons immediately and prepare to be boarded. You have 2 minutes to comply. Ryloth stared at the screen. This had to be a bluff. The humans did not have fleets like this. Intelligence reports said they only had exploration vessels. Small ships. Weak ships. Where had these warships come from? Commander, they're waiting for a response, his communications officer said nervously. Ryloth straightened his uniform. He would not be intimidated. Human Commodore, you are interfering with consortium business. These people owe us passage taxes. If you do not withdraw, we will be forced to defend ourselves. Jae-sung's expression did not change. You have 1 minute and 40 seconds. I suggest you use that time wisely. Our weapons are locked onto all of your vessels. If the New Dawn is harmed in any way, we will consider it an act of war against humanity. And I promise you, Commander, you do not want to see how Deathworlders wage war. Deathworlders. Ryloth had heard the term before. It was what the galactic community called species from high-gravity, dangerous planets. Earth qualified. But so what? Tough living conditions did not make for good warriors. Technology did. Training did. And the Valtresh had both. This is your last warning, human. Leave now or face the consequences. Jae-sung sighed. You have 1 minute. Use it to reconsider. Ryloth cut the transmission. He turned to his tactical officer. Ready all weapons. 3 ships will fire on the transport. The rest will engage the human fleet. Show them what happens when primitives challenge the consortium. On the new dawn, Hyunsu saw 3 Valtresh ships turning toward them. Their weapons were charging. They were actually going to do it. They were going to fire on a ship full of civilians. Brace for impact, he shouted. The Valtresh ships fired. Missiles streaked across the void toward the new dawn. Hyunsu closed his eyes. This was it. The missiles exploded, but not against the new dawn's hull. They exploded in space hundreds of meters away from the transport. Hyunsu's eyes snapped open. What happened? Ji-eun was staring at her display in amazement. Sir, something intercepted them. Fast movers. Really fast. I didn't even see them on sensors until they fired. Captain Yoo-jin pulled her fighter into a tight turn. Around her, the rest of Wraith Squadron did the same. They had been deployed ahead of the fleet, running in stealth mode. The Valtresh had never seen them coming. All missiles neutralized, she reported to the Soul's Hammer. Beginning attack run on hostile vessels. The Wraith fighters accelerated to speeds that should have been impossible. They moved like Earth's fighter jets used to move in atmosphere, but they were in space. They dodged and weaved with precision that came from training in high gravity. Their reflexes, honed by millions of years of evolution on a dangerous planet, were faster than the Valtresh could track. The 3 Valtresh ships that had fired on the new dawn never had a chance. Wraith Squadron hit them with precision strikes. Railgun rounds traveling at relativistic speeds punched through their shields as if they were paper. Within 30 seconds, all 3 ships were disabled. Their weapons were destroyed. Their engines were offline, but they were still intact. The humans did not want to kill. Not yet. On his bridge, Ryloth watched in horror. 3 of his ships taken out in half a minute by fighters. Small craft that should not have been able to penetrate military-grade shields. How did they do that? He whispered. His tactical officer was frantically checking his systems. Sir, their weapons are using kinetic projectiles. Solid matter at extreme velocities. Our shields are designed to stop energy weapons. They're not effective against physical impacts at those speeds. Adapt our shields. It will take time, sir. Minutes at least. We don't have minutes. Return fire. All ships engage the human fleet. The Valtresh Consortium fleet opened fire. Energy beams and missiles filled the space between them and the human ships. It was an impressive display of firepower. It should have been devastating. It was not. The human fleet's shields absorbed the energy weapons easily. The missiles were shot down by point defense systems before they could connect, and the human ships kept coming, advancing in perfect formation. Then the Soul's Hammer fired its main railguns. Ryloth watched as massive slugs of metal crossed the distance between the fleets in seconds. They were not energy. They were not missiles. They were simply solid matter, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, and when they hit, they did not just damage ships. They went through them. The first Valtresh destroyer took a railgun round through its midsection. The projectile entered from the bow, passed through 3 decks, and exited from the stern. The ship split in 2, its structure unable to handle the kinetic force. Shields at full. How did that penetrate? Ryloth screamed. Sir, I told you. Our shields don't stop solid matter at those velocities. More human ships fired. More Valtresh vessels were hit. Some were destroyed. Others were crippled. The human targeting was impossibly accurate. They hit exactly where they wanted to hit. Major Sunmi's bomber wing released their missiles. The Hellfire weapons streaked toward the Valtresh fleet. Each one carried a shaped nuclear charge. When they detonated, the explosions were small and focused. But the damage was catastrophic. Valtresh armor, designed to resist energy weapons, could not handle nuclear detonations. In minutes, the Valtresh fleet was in chaos. Ships were trying to scatter. Some were attempting to retreat. But the humans had anticipated every move. Human destroyers, commanded by officers like Commander Yoon-ji, were already positioned where the Valtresh ships tried to run. It was as if the humans could read their minds. They're predicting our tactics, Ryloth's tactical officer shouted. Every time we try to maneuver, they're already there. Ryloth finally understood. These were not random humans. These were warriors from a death world. They had evolved to hunt and be hunted. Their brains processed combat information faster. Their tactics were based on millions of years of survival against predators and each other. The Valtresh had training. The humans had instinct. All ships, cease fire. We surrender. But Jae-sung's voice came over the communication channel, cold and final. You fired on civilians, Commander Ryloth. You mocked our distress call. You threatened our people. We don't accept your surrender. Not yet. The battle was not a battle. It was a lesson in what happens when a species evolved on a death world decides to fight. Commander Ryloth watched his fleet fall apart. The Soul's hammer fired again and another of his ships took critical damage. The human battlecruiser moved through space like it owned it. Weapons blazing with mechanical precision. Every shot hit. Every shot did damage. There was no wasted fire, no missed targets. Engineering, get our shields reconfigured. Ryloth shouted. We need to stop those projectiles. We're trying, sir. But every time we adjust, they change their attack pattern. It's like they know what we're going to do before we do it. On the new dawn, Captain Hyunsu and his crew watched the battle unfold on their screens. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. The human fleet moved like a school of fish, each ship knowing exactly where the others were, responding instantly to changes in the battle. How are they doing this? Engineer Dongwu asked, his voice full of awe. That level of coordination should be impossible. Lieutenant Ji-un had been studying military history before joining the colony service. She understood what they were seeing. It's hunting behavior. Pack tactics. Humans evolved as pursuit predators on Earth. We learned to hunt in groups to coordinate without needing constant communication. Our brains are wired for this. The Wraith Squadron made another pass. Captain Yu Jin led her fighters in an attack pattern that would have been familiar to any Earth pilot who had studied aerial combat. It was called the Thatch Weave, a maneuver developed in the 20th century. The Valtresh had never seen it before. They had no defense against it. Her fighters moved in pairs, crossing over each other's paths, covering each other's blind spots. When a Valtresh ship tried to target one fighter, it exposed itself to fire from another. It was simple. It was effective. It was devastating. Wraith 2, you've got one on your tail, Yujin called out. I see him. Breaking left. The Valtresh ship followed, trying to get a target lock. But as Wraith 2 turned, Wraith 3 came up from below and fired. The Valtresh ship's weapon systems exploded. It drifted away, helpless. Major Sunmi's bombers made their second run. This time they targeted the Valtresh flagship, Ryloth's own command ship. The Hellfire missiles came in low and fast, hugging the plane of the solar system's asteroid belt. By the time the Valtresh sensors picked them up, it was too late to intercept. The nuclear charges detonated against the flagship's hull. The shaped blasts focused their energy into penetrating spears. Armor plates buckled and tore. Atmosphere vented from dozens of breaches. The ship was still intact, but it was crippled. All ships who scatter. Retreat to hyperspace. Ryloth ordered. His ships tried. They turned and accelerated, attempting to reach the minimum safe distance for a hyperspace jump. But the human fleet had already anticipated this move. Commander Yunji's destroyer group was waiting. They had positioned themselves along every escape route. As the Valtresh ships tried to flee, they ran straight into human firing lines. Not one vessel made it to hyperspace. They're hurting us, Ryloth's tactical officer said, his voice defeated. Like prey animals. That was exactly what the humans were doing. On the Soul's hammer, Commodore Jae Sung watched the tactical display with satisfaction. The Valtresh were responding exactly as predicted. Humans had hunted prey for millions of years. They knew how animals moved when they were afraid. They knew how to cut off escape routes. They knew how to corner. Sir, all enemy vessels are now within our containment zone, his tactical officer reported. Good, weapons free. Target their engines and weapons systems. I want them disabled, not destroyed. We need survivors. The human fleet adjusted its fire. Instead of killing shots, they delivered precise strikes that knocked out specific systems. It was harder than simply destroying the ships. It required perfect accuracy. The human gunners did not miss. One by one, the Valtresh ships went dark. Engines failed. Weapons systems exploded. Life support flickered but remained online. The humans were careful about that. They did not want the Valtresh crews to suffocate. They wanted them alive. They wanted witnesses. Ryloth's flagship was the last to fall. A railgun round severed his ship's main power conduit. The lights went out. Emergency systems kicked in, but they were weak. His crew sat in the darkness, listening to the sounds of their ship dying around them. Sir, we've lost everything. Weapons, engines, shields. We're dead in space. Ryloth slumped in his chair. His entire fleet, 14 warships, destroyed in less than an hour by an enemy he had thought was primitive. Jae-sung's face appeared on every surviving Valtresh screen, including Ryloth's. The Commodore's expression was not triumphant. It was not angry. It was cold and businesslike, which somehow made it worse. Commander Ryloth, your fleet is disabled. You will prepare to be boarded. Your crew will be taken into custody and held for trial by the Galactic Council. Any resistance will be met with immediate force. Do you understand? Ryloth could barely speak. Yes. Good. Now before we conclude our business here, I want to make sure you understand something. Jae-sung leaned forward. You mocked our distress call. You laughed at the idea that we could respond in time. You thought Earth was too far away and humans were too weak. He gestured off screen and the image changed. Now it showed the human fleet in all its glory. 27 capital ships undamaged, hundreds of fighters returning to their carriers, and behind them the New Dawn safe and protected. This is the third fleet, Commander. We have 5 more fleets just like it. We built them in secret while you laughed at us. While you called us primitive. While you pushed us around in trade negotiations. Jae-sung's voice hardened. We are patient. We are willing to negotiate. We prefer peace. But we are also survivors of a death world where everything tried to kill us for millions of years. And we learned something important during those millions of years. Never start a fight you can't finish. The image changed again. Now it showed Earth from orbit, blue and green and beautiful. That planet has 1.2 times standard gravity. It has oceans that cover 70% of its surface, filled with creatures that can swallow a ship. It has storms that could tear your vessels apart. It has predators that hunt in packs and prey that fight back. Every human you see was forged in that crucible. We are strong because Earth made us strong. We are dangerous because Earth taught us to be dangerous. Jae-sung stood up. I'm going to broadcast this message across the entire sector. Every species will see what happened here today. They will see that humanity protects its own. They will see that we don't bluff. And they will learn that mocking our distress calls has consequences. The transmission went out on every frequency. Jae-sung's speech was translated into every major galactic language. Images of the disabled Valtresh fleet were attached. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer the newcomer to be pushed around. On the New Dawn, rescue operations began. Human medical teams boarded the transport to check on the civilians. Engineers arrived to repair the damaged engines. Within hours, the ship was spaceworthy again. Captain Hyun-soo stood on his bridge and watched the human fleet work with military efficiency. Lieutenant Ji-eun stood beside him, still processing what they had witnessed. Sir, where did all these ships come from? I thought Earth only had a small exploration fleet. Hyun-soo shook his head slowly. Apparently we had more than that. A lot more. Engineer Dongwoo joined them. I've been talking to some of the human engineers. They've been building this fleet for 20 years. 20 years. And nobody knew. The galaxy underestimated us, Hyun-soo said. They thought we were weak. They thought Earth made us soft. He looked at the Soul's hammer on his screen, its weapon still charged, still ready. They were wrong. Earth made us strong. Earth made us survivors. And survivors don't abandon their own. In the distance, the Valtresh ships drifted dark and broken. Ryloth sat in his damaged bridge and understood, too late, what it meant to challenge a species from a death world. The humans had come. They had answered the call, and they had shown the galaxy that mocking their distress signals was the last mistake anyone would make. The video played on screens across the galaxy. Every major civilization watched as the human fleet destroyed a Valtresh consortium task force in less than an hour. The images were clear. The message was clearer. On the neutral world of Talos Prime, the Galactic Council gathered in emergency session. The council chamber was a massive dome where representatives from 200 species met to discuss interstellar law and politics. Today, every seat was filled. Everyone wanted to hear what Earth had to say. Ambassador Jinwoo stood at the speaker's platform. He was a career diplomat, calm and professional. But even he felt nervous facing this crowd. He wore a simple dark suit. His notes were on a tablet in his hand. He did not need them. He knew exactly what to say. Honored council members, he began. 3 days ago, the civilian transport New Dawn was attacked by Valtresh consortium forces in neutral space. 12,000 human civilians were held hostage. Demands were made. Threats were issued. And when we sent a distress call, the Valtresh intercepted it and mocked us. He pressed a button and the video played on the main screen. The council watched as Valtresh officers laughed at the human distress signal. They watched as Commander Ryloth made jokes about Earth being too far away to help. The Valtresh believed humanity was weak. They believed we had no real military capability. They believed we would not respond in time. Jinwoo paused. They were wrong about all three. The video changed. Now it showed the Third Fleet arriving. The council chamber was silent as they watched human ships disable 14 Valtresh warships with surgical precision. Several council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Earth has been building a defensive fleet for 20 years. Jinwoo continued. We did this quietly because we learned early that in this galaxy, strength matters more than words. The Valtresh, the Crethon Empire, the Scar Collective, all of you pushed us around in negotiations. All of you threatened our explorers. All of you assumed we were primitive because we only recently achieved faster-than-light travel. He looked around the chamber. Today you learned otherwise. Earth is a high-gravity world. Our oceans are deep and violent. Our storms can level cities. Our wildlife includes predators that hunt in packs and prey that evolved armor and weapons. We survived all of that. We thrived in those conditions. And when we came to the stars, we brought that Deathworld strength with us. The council erupted in discussion. Some species were angry. Others were impressed. A few looked genuinely afraid. Jinwoo waited for the chamber to quiet down before continuing. Commander Ryloth and his officers will face trial here, before this council, for piracy and attempted mass murder. The evidence is overwhelming. We expect justice to be served. The trial took place over the next week. The evidence was presented. The Valtresh officers had no defense. They had attacked a civilian vessel in neutral space. They had threatened to kill 12,000 people. The law was clear. Commander Ryloth stood in the defendant's area, his 4 eyes downcast. When asked if he had anything to say, he spoke quietly. We thought they were primitive. We saw their small exploration ships and assumed they were weak. We didn't realize they were hiding a fleet that could challenge any power in the galaxy. He paused, his voice bitter. We mocked their distress call. We laughed at the idea that help could arrive in time. We should have remembered that the most dangerous predators are the ones that don't look threatening. The council found Ryloth and his officers guilty on all charges. They were sentenced to 20 years in a council detention facility. The Valtresh Consortium was ordered to pay massive reparations to the New Dawn's passengers. Their control over the Epsilon sector trade routes was stripped away and given to neutral oversight. But the trial was not the only consequence. Across the galaxy, species reassessed their understanding of humanity. Some reached out with offers of alliance. The Terran Republic, a coalition of 3 smaller species that had long been oppressed by the consortium, sent envoys to Earth. They met with President Sung-ho in Geneva. We have watched humanity for years, the Terran ambassador said. We saw how you were treated by the larger powers. We saw how they underestimated you. And we saw what happened when they pushed you too far. She leaned forward. We would like to propose a mutual defense pact. Your strength combined with our resources could change the balance of power in this region of space. President Sung-ho considered the offer carefully. We're not interested in building an empire. We just want to protect our people and live in peace. So do we. That's why we need each other. The alliance was signed 3 months later. Earth gained trading partners and forward bases. The Terran Republic gained protection from larger predatory powers. Both sides benefited. Other species sought different arrangements. The Meklar Collective, a group of peaceful traders, offered technology exchanges. The Andoran clans requested human military advisors to train their defense forces. Even some former rivals like the Crethon Empire opened diplomatic channels that had previously been closed. Back in the Epsilon sector, the Third Fleet established a permanent presence. Commodore Jae-sung left behind 5 warships and 2 carrier groups, under the command of Captain Yu-jin. Her orders were simple: protect human interests and ensure safe passage for Earth vessels. The New Dawn continued to Arcturus Prime, escorted by human warships. Captain Hyun-soo stood on his bridge and watched the planet grow larger on the main screen. It was beautiful, with green continents and blue oceans, almost like Earth. Lieutenant Ji-yeon stood beside him. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the colony coordinator. They're ready for us. Good. Take us down. The colonists established their settlement over the following weeks. They built homes. They planted crops. They started new lives. And in the center of their main town, they erected a memorial. It was a simple stone monument with a metal plaque. Engraved on that plaque were the names of every ship and crew member of the Third Fleet. Below the names was an inscription that read, "They heard our call. They came for us. We are never alone." Back on Earth, the revelation of the secret fleet caused debates among civilians. Some people were angry that the government had hidden such a massive military program. Others understood it had been necessary. General Na Young addressed the public in a broadcast from Pacific Fleet Command. For 20 years we prepared for the day when our people would be threatened in the vastness of space. We built a fleet not for conquest but for protection. Today that fleet proved its worth. Humanity is no longer the newcomer begging for a place at the galactic table. We have earned our seat through strength, courage, and the refusal to abandon our people. Admiral Taemin retired 6 months after the incident. His last act was to promote Captain Hyun-soo to the rank of commander and offer him a commission in the Earth Space Force. Hyun-soo accepted. Someone needed to make sure the next generation of colony ships would be protected. The story of the New Dawn became famous across human space. Children learned about it in school. Recruits in the Space Force studied the battle tactics. Diplomats referenced it when negotiating with alien powers. It became a defining moment in human history, the day Earth showed the galaxy what Deathworlders could do. Trade routes opened up. Pirates who once preyed on human explorers suddenly found other targets. Diplomatic channels that had been hostile became neutral or even friendly. The phrase Deathworlder changed meaning in galactic culture. It was no longer an insult. It was a warning. Years passed. The Third Fleet was expanded. More ships were built. Earth's orbital shipyards, no longer secret, operated openly. The galaxy watched as humanity grew into its role as a major power. Captain Yu Jin, now an admiral, stood on the bridge of her flagship in the Epsilon sector. She watched human cargo ships pass through the space that once belonged to the Valtresh. They traveled safely now. No one bothered them. No one demanded passage taxes. No one mocked their distress calls. A young officer approached her. "Admiral, we're receiving a distress call. Human exploration vessel, engine failure 3 systems away." Yujin did not hesitate. "Set course. Maximum speed. Send a message to the ship, help is coming." The officer smiled. "Yes, ma'am." The flagship turned and accelerated toward the distressed vessel. Behind it, 2 destroyers and a carrier group followed. They would reach the exploration ship in 4 hours. They would rescue the crew. They would prove once again that humanity protected its own. Far away on Earth, an old admiral sat in his retirement home and watched the stars. Taemin had served his planet for 50 years. He had seen humanity go from a single world species to a galactic power. He had overseen the building of the secret fleet. He had given the order to deploy the Third Fleet to rescue the New Dawn. A younger officer visited him that evening. It was Commander Hyun-soo, now in charge of training new colony ship captains. "Admiral, I wanted to thank you," Hyun-soo said. "If you hadn't built that fleet, my ship and 12,000 people would be dead." Taemin smiled. "I just did what needed to be done. Earth needed protection. Our people needed to know they weren't alone out there." He looked up at the stars visible through his window. "The galaxy underestimated us because we're young. They forgot that young species from death worlds are the most dangerous. We have to be. Our planets tried to kill us for millions of years.